Chairman Hernandez. Chairman Hernandez. Thank you. Chairman Hernandez and members of the Senate Health Committee, my name is Christy O'Donnell. I'm 46 years old, and I have everything to live for. She's sitting right there. But terminal lung cancer is killing me quickly and very painfully. The lung cancer that I was first diagnosed with has metastasized to my brain in the form of a golf ball-sized tumor in the cognitive region of my brain. As a lawyer who makes their living speaking, the thought of not being able to communicate with others and to tell my daughter that I love her would leave me trapped in my own body. I'm sorry. My daughter Bailey is 20 years old. She is smart as a whip. She is beautiful without realizing it. And she is the love of my life. She works full-time as a manager in the career with animals that she has chosen, and she works here in California. She goes to college full-time here in California. All of her friends, her entire support group is here in California. Bailey's best friend, Vicky, sweetheart, also goes to college and works full-time here in California, and she has moved in with us to provide support for Bailey. So I cannot rip my daughter Bailey away from her support group, away from the job she loves with animals, away from her full-time job with benefits, and away from her family and friends that give her the comfort and are going to be there to hold her hand when I die. I can't do it. Like every mom, I've dreamed my whole entire life of seeing her in her wedding dress, of walking her down the aisle. And for the last 20 years, she and I have been collecting little charms to put on a charm bracelet that I had planned to hand her and put on her wrist as her something old. I want to hold my grandbabies. I always told Bailey that no matter where she lived in California, that I would stalk her to take care of her babies. And that was my planned retirement. So again, I have everything to live for. I don't want to leave California. I am a Californian. This is the state that I have chosen to live in. It's the state that I've chosen to work in. I have literally given my blood, my sweat and tears as a sergeant with the Los Angeles Police Department. And I've given that blood, sweat, and tears to protect the people of this state that I live in. I taught law for a period of time at the LAPD Police Academy, and what I taught the new recruits was to follow the law, not to break it. And I did that for a decade. I then spent the next 10 years upholding the law as an attorney, an employment law attorney, protecting the rights of disabled persons, protecting against discrimination in the workplace. I've taken the time to read the entire proposed Senate bill. I've read the prior bills. I do not believe that I should speak out or my daughter should speak out unless I'm speaking out with an informed opinion. If I believed for 1 second that the career in law that I loved in protecting people with disabilities, if this law would harm them, I would not be sitting here today speaking out. I would not do that. Today, March 25th, marks exactly 9 months since the day since the day my daughter and I sat in the emergency room and the doctor looked at us and told us that I had a golf ball-sized tumor in my brain. And I looked at my baby and I said to her, "I'm sorry, baby." And I was saying sorry because I was going to leave her without a mom. I have, in the last 9 months, endured brain surgery. I have had chemotherapy every 3 weeks. I have blown all of the veins in both of my arms, and I no longer have any good veins. I recently had a port surgery, which is an IV to my heart. It's a health committee, I'm sure you know that, so that I can continue getting chemotherapy. When they were taking biopsies of my cancer in the hospital, I asked them to take extra biopsies because I wanted to live. I wanted to have those biopsies to send away for analysis to see if I could get into any clinical trials, and I am ineligible for any clinical trials. So anyone who says that I don't want to live would be making a very uninformed statement. I've been told that I will likely die within the next few months, and I've asked my doctor, and they've described to me how I'm going to die. It is likely with a golf ball-sized tumor in my lung that I'll drown in my own fluids. And if you have ever been swimming and a wave has held you under for longer than you want, and your lungs begin burning, and you want nothing more than to get to the surface and gasp for air, then maybe you know in small part how I will likely die in front of my daughter. I do not want to see my daughter watching me gasp for air. I have a wonderful, very experienced palliative care doctor that I work with. So I'm not making these statements to you in an uninformed manner. There is no palliative care in the world that can take away my fear of the way that I will likely die in front of my daughter. And no palliative care will take away the very likely possibility that I will die and my daughter will come home and find my body. Every day when my daughter is driving home from work, she calls me on the phone, and when she hears my voice, she gets very excited and she says, "Hi, Mama." And she's very happy because she knows on that day she will not have to come home and find me dead. I have been a Christian my entire life, so I have factored in my religious beliefs, my ethical beliefs into the decision that I've discussed with my daughter, my family, and friends. And since being sick, I have actively sought out the opinions of my friends, my coworkers, who represent various religions throughout the state of California. And to me, each one of my friends and colleagues, coworkers, have told me that they recognize that this is a very personal, individual decision. No one can know what my daughter and I are going through unless they're standing in my shoes, despite my best efforts today to articulate to you and describe to you what it's like to go through what we've been through. I'm also a Republican, and so is my daughter. But whether or not you decide to pass this law, it has nothing to do with political affiliation. I've taught my daughter, I carried her into the voting booths from the time she was little and brought her every single year when I voted, because I wanted her to understand that she cannot complain about the law in this state or in this country unless she goes and she votes, and it must be an informed opinion. When she turned 18, I was so very proud to hold her hand and walk next to her into that voting booth. And I've taught her to make a decision not based on her political affiliation, but based upon it being an informed decision and what she truly believes is right, which is what I ask you to do today. I ask you to change the law to give every person, not me. It's very unlikely that I'll be alive by the time this law passes. So I'm not sitting here with any agenda. I'm not sitting here for myself. because it's likely I won't be alive by the time this bill passes. And because I've spent my life as an LAPD officer, which I'm very proud of, I spent my life as an attorney, I will not, in my death, break the law. I will not do it. I respect the law. I respect the decisions that you have made in the past as a Senate and will make in the future. But I do ask you all, when you're traveling, when you're sick, and when your body hurts, where do you want to be? At home, right? In your own bed. And that's where I want to be. I want to be at home, in my own bed, with my daughter, holding my hand, surrounded by family, because when I pass, I do not want her to watch me in pain, and I do not want her to be alone. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next presenter, name please. We do have 8 minutes left for the first panel.
Good morning, Chairman, Dr. Hernandez, members of the Senate Health Committee. It's a pleasure to be here again. I appreciate it. My name is Robert Olvera. I am a grieving father who lost his youngest daughter. I am also a physician. Up until recently, end-of-life options would never have crossed my mind. But last spring, I saw my cancer-stricken daughter, Emily Rose, confined to a bed, blind, struggling to breathe, with excruciating headaches that no medicine could alleviate. "Give me some pills so I can go to sleep, Daddy," Emily Rose said in a barely audible voice. "I don't want to be chemo sick anymore. No one should have to live like this." As a Catholic, I never lost hope. I said every prayer I learned from my days as an altar boy. But as a Harvard physician, I knew what was in store for my daughter with the rare form of leukemia that crept into our lives when she was only 7 years old. Emily Rose received her last rites before she died in our home in Santa Ana with hospice care after a 17-year struggle with leukemia. But she did not die in a way she wanted. My 25-year-old daughter should have had the option to request a prescription for medication to prevent her 4 months of agonizing pain that ended on April 26, 2014. The Catholic Church has taught me that only God has the right to take our lives, but God does not want his children to suffer. Cancer destroyed my daughter's brain. I watched Emily Rose decompose. She suffered horribly as I sat next to her, unable to make it any better. Seeing a daughter suffer, or a son for that matter, and die slowly is torture. Any parent that has ever experienced that will tell you that. Why did my little girl have to suffer needlessly from relentless pain at the end of her life? Why did she have to endure medical interventions that produced more pain than relief? And all that left her a shell of who she used to be. Emily Rose didn't want doctors or hospitals. She wanted her dog, her home, her bed, her mother's food, her surroundings. If I ever found myself with a terminal illness with only weeks or months to live, I would want this option for myself. Even if I never used it, it would be of a great source of comfort to know that the medication would be there should the pain become too great. I would also help foster a structured process for terminally ill people, their families, and their doctors to have honest, deliberate, and thoughtful conversations about end-of-life decisions, including pain management, hospice, aid in dying, or no treatment at all. I am glad that a significant majority of my physician colleagues in the United States who have been recently polled by Medscape said they would support the decision of patients with incurable and terminal diseases who wanted to end their own life to stop needless suffering. I also want this option for myself. Whatever their decision is, it's a huge gift that we can provide. But sometimes our modern technology only prolongs the dying process. It doesn't prolong life. It can also prolong suffering, something that does more harm at the end. As physicians, as healers, we must admit that even the strongest pain medicine is not always effective. Our surgeries not always successful. Our well-intentioned treatments can diminish rather than improve a quality of life. I am at peace knowing that Emily Rose is now in heaven, where she is running free from cancer. I pray to God for the passage of the End of Life Option Act. Without this law, dying Californians in unbearable pain face a severe threat to their dignity of their lives as it comes to an end. I will fight for you, Emily Rose. I will fight for Christy O'Donnell. I will fight for Brittany Menard and other terminally ill Californians so they don't have to go through what you went through. Life is good without you, Em. You are always in our hearts. God knows how much we miss you, but you suffer no more, my baby.
Thank you. State your name, please.
Yes, my name is Heather Fargo. I'm a former mayor here in the city of Sacramento, and I'm pleased to be here today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the committee for having us speak to you today. I'm here today speaking for myself, but I believe also for many other people that I know, both families and family members and friends. Like many of you, I have seen both family members and friends pass away, and sometimes that was peaceful and sometimes it wasn't. My own grandparents, my grandmothers lived to be 91 and 101 respectively, so despite the fact that I have multiple sclerosis, I plan to be around for a while. But I did see my grandmother suffer, and she asked me almost every time I came if I could help her pass away. And I think we've all had those experiences. I was not able to help her. I feel guilty to this day that I didn't do something illegal to do so. We all want to be in control. We all want to have good health, but we don't always get our way. We're all on this journey, and this journey ultimately ends. This End of Life Option Act is an incredibly important step for us to take, I believe, here in California. And I think the most important word in that title is the word option. This is not being forced upon anybody. It's been tried and tested in Oregon for years and in other states, and as someone who is disabled, I feel very protected by the language in this bill. I don't feel that this would be forced upon me. I think this would give me an option to maintain control. Like all of us, we want to maintain control, and this is a step that would help us do that. I could go on, but I want to make sure we have time for our next speaker. So thank you again for listening to us, and on behalf of many people in California, we urge you to pass this bill.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Before you start, unfortunately, we have 44 seconds left, which...
I can do it, Chair Hernandez. I'm Ignacio Castoera, and I'm a clergy person, obviously, and I believe in divine providence, and I think that I'm here because of divine providence. I was supposed to be in Mexico for a family reunion. My compañera fell very ill. I had to call the paramedics on Sunday, and that's why I'm here. So I was not supposed to be here, but I am supposed to be here. Two very quick things. St. Francis of Assisi wrote a wonderful poem turned into a hymn in which he talks about brother sun, sister moon, and also says, "And O thou kind and gentle death, waiting to hush our latest breath." St. Francis said, gentle death. What we're asking for is for you to take this opportunity to give to all Californians the chance to die a gentle death. And then finally, from the Jewish tradition, Purim, which was celebrated at the beginning of this month, it's a book. The book of Esther has no mention of God, but it says, who knows if you have been called for such a time as this? Gentlemen and ladies, you have been called for such a time as this. Use it.
Thank you. I believe
20 seconds.
There was one more comment that wanted to be made. In all fairness, we'll give just a little bit more time, and whatever exact time for the proponents, we will give to the opponents as well. I believe, no one else? We're okay?
No more
Senator Walk,
witnesses.
okay.
No more witnesses, Mr. Chair, but I wanted to draw the attention of the committee to Brittany Menard's testimony that she put together 18 days before she died, and it was truly directed to the legislators. And I wanted to introduce her husband, her widower, Dan Diaz, who is here with us today as well. Dan. He'll wait to comment when you open the public comment.
Thank you very much. And it did go over just slightly over the half hour. We will be fair and give the opponents the same amount of time. So if you don't mind, I'd appreciate if those of you who are giving testimony, if you could move on down, and we'll bring up the opposition at this time. And we will not start the clock until everyone is seated. Yeah.
Very good. Very good.
Sure. Thank you. She's present. Watch your step.
Be careful.
She looks great.
Well, this is the opponent. You're on the other side. So.
Okay, can I have everyone's attention? Let me thank everybody for how polite and respectful you have been. We're going to now proceed to the opponents of the bill, and we will start now. If you can just state your name and please proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Hernandez and members, and thank you for this great, very, very dignified hearing on a difficult subject. My name is David Ford. I'm the legislative advocate for the Medical Oncology Association of Southern California and the Association of Northern California Oncologists. I'd like to start by introducing two representatives from my clients. To my immediate left is Warren Fong, MD, the president of MOASC. To his immediate left is Dan Murda, MD, the president of ANCO. After them, at least as far as our coalition, will be Marilyn Golden with the Disability Rights Education and Defense Fund, and then Dr. Kiriati down at the end of the table, the director of the Program of Medical Ethics at UC Irvine.
Chairman Hernandez and members of the Health Committee, my name is Warren Fong. I'm an oncologist, the president of the Medical Oncology Association of Southern California, and a member of the California Medical Association. In the world of medicine, I am unfortunately considered an expert on death and dying. I am here today on behalf of my society to speak in opposition to Senate Bill 128 for the following reasons. First, physician-assisted suicide is an antithesis of being a physician. Assisting in the taking of a human life is against everything physicians stand for and defiles the reputation and meaning of being a physician. Second, the oral regimen is inherently unsafe. This bill assumes that every patient will take the medication in its entirety, correctly take it, absorb it readily, and respond equally. Who is responsible if a patient does not have that peaceful death, if they die suffering from these drugs, or survives and has a horrible consequence? Furthermore, once these prescriptions filled, all the protections that you talk about are out the window. In Oregon, we know that patients hold on to these prescriptions for up to 2 years and sometimes never use it. It's sitting in their medication cabinet where it can be stolen, accidentally used by someone else, or worse, it could be given by a caregiver to an unwitting patient because he's tired of taking care of mom or is anxious to get his inheritance. Third, the bill will undermine the relationship between vulnerable patients and the physicians. I know that you claim this bill is voluntary, but it's not. When I agree to take care of a cancer patient, it's forever. Can you imagine what you're asking me to do? I cannot abandon them in their time of need, but you're asking me to make a decision between my promise to them and morality. I'm not alone. I know you polled physicians and they say they're for it, but when we poll oncologists who say they're for it, we ask them, would you do it? They often tell us no. Fourth, physicians are notoriously bad at predicting life expectancy. What is 6 months? I recently got a letter from a patient's daughter, and she said, Dr. Fong, my mother saw 2 other oncologists who gave her 6 months or less to live. You gave her 4 years. While many of you do not think 4 years is a lot of time, she wrote that at the time her daughter was only 4 years old. In the intervening 4 years, her mother taught her daughter to bake and cook. And instead of not having any memory of her as a 4-year-old, as an 8-year-old, she has vivid memories of her grandmother who she learned to love. That's what 4 years means. The fifth is once you sanction a taboo, any restrictions that you talk about, they're out the window because that's all relative. It is a slippery slope no matter what you say. Why 6 months? Why not a year? Why not 10 years? Why do only terminally ill patients get it? How about me? I live in chronic pain every single day. They talk about not knowing pain. I know it. I wake up with it and it'll never go away. 6, one-day physician suicide will be encouraged. Today, some patients will feel obligated to commit suicide so they will no longer be a burden on their family. We talk about coercion. What about guilt? That's a very powerful, very, very powerful means of persuasion. Will someday insurance companies, in their quest to reduce costs and the introduction of obligatory cancer care pathways, have the pathway ending in physician-assisted suicide? Well, this may seem far-fetched. This is exactly what we're hearing from our disability advocates in Oregon. Finally, palliative medicine and hospice provides the answers to our patients' fears. I have taken care of over 5,000 cancer patients. Not one asked me about suicide. They didn't because I allayed their fears. I made the vow to take care of them forever, and I promised them they wouldn't suffer. And I always kept my promise. I hear the laughter, but it's true. I've went to people's houses, and going to people's houses and helping them is a lot stronger medicine than these pills you're prescribing. I know the shortcomings of palliative medicine and hospice. I wish every person had a caring oncologist and the very best in palliative and hospice care. But just because these programs are flawed does not justify SB 128. We need to concentrate on making the right programs better. In closing, I'm pleading with this committee to defeat Senate Bill 128. Do not mistake temporary popularity with wisdom. People have the luxury of viewing life in their own sphere. As leaders, you are charged with the entirety of society. While what the voters want is important, it should be only one decision point in your tree. Please lead and make a choice based on the greater good and foresight, not merely on popularity, which is fleeting. Do not be on the wrong side of history. Thank you.